Well, it's 6:01. I am going to introduce myself and read Kathy's bio. We are recording, so as people come in, they're welcome to come in, but we can also share the video after. So my name is Yadhira Lozano. I am the Executive Director of Luminaria, which is well known for the Contemporary Arts Festival, but we're also a granting organization. We grant funds to local artists. We just awarded 7 artists in San Antonio with funding for new works that are to be produced within the next 12 months, all across the artistic genres. So we've made that announcement, and everyone's really excited to get some funding to help them through the pandemic. Next Saturday, May 8th, we're part of a group hosting the Viva Telethon. It's a fundraiser coming to us from Texas Public Radio, from their downtown headquarters, and Garrett T. Capps, who is owner of the Lonesome Rose. And so last year, the fundraiser was held to provide aid to working artists in San Antonio during the coronavirus pandemic. So it was called Corona Arts Relief. And so this year, now that we're moving forward, we're working through this pandemic and hopefully coming out on the other end. I've renamed it to Working Artist Fund so that we can move forward from this year, next year, and down the line, raise money to help working artists in San Antonio, Bexar County, get through those humps and hurdles, all those expenses that come up at the last minute. You know, they can use it for travel, they can use it to attend a seminar, to buy supplies, to repair equipment, purchase equipment, things like that. You know, maybe they need to pay the rent on their studio 1 month. So we'll be launching that grant in the fall, and working artists are eligible for up to $550 from that grant. And so we'll be raising money next Saturday, May 8th, on our website, luminariasa.org, tpr.org, and also on our social media from 6 p.m. to midnight. So I hope you tune in for that. And so now, one thing that I wanted to do and utilize the resources we have available from Luminaria. Our Facebook has over 33,000 followers. We have this wide audience that's interested in the work that we're doing. I wanted to start this Live with Luminaria series where I talk to an artist about anything, you know, about what they're working on, how, you know, any kind of background information. And so I had invited Kathy Vargas to sit in on one of our focus groups that we held now that we're undergoing strategic planning. And she had all these wonderful ideas, wonderful questions, so much knowledge, rich history of the arts community in San Antonio that I said, let's talk on Facebook. And she's like, well, I'll do Zoom. I'm like, okay, we'll do Zoom, whatever platform we have. So I want to thank Kathy and all of you for joining us today. And we're just going to have a very informal conversation. If you have questions, you can pop them in the chat. If this group is small and intimate, you know, you can go ahead and interrupt us as well. So Kathy Vargas, artist photographer from San Antonio, Texas, received her MFA from the University of Texas at San Antonio in 1984. She has had one-person exhibitions at Sala Uno in Rome, Galeria Juan Martin in Mexico City, Centro Recoleta in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and retrospectives at the McNay Art Museum in San Antonio and the Universitat Erlangen in Germany. I hope I said that right. Group shows include Hospice, a photographic inquiry, a national traveling exhibit commissioned by the Corcoran Gallery, and Chicano Art, Resistance and Affirmation, CARA or CARA. She is in the collection of the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the Toledo Art Museum, the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago, the Houston Museum of Fine Art, and the Sprint Collection. Named 2005 Texas Two-Dimensional Artist of the Year by the Texas Commission on the Arts, she also received a Lightwork Residency in 1993 and Art Pace Residencies in 1997. Her papers are housed at the Smithsonian's Archive of American Art. She is currently professor of art photography at the University of Incarnate Word. So with that, I'd like to welcome Kathy Vargas.
Hello, good to see you. Good to see everybody. I recognize a few faces on the internet, so that's nice.
So, Kathy, I want to start in the beginning because we need to know where we came from in order to understand where we're at and where we want to go. So, can you tell us about your childhood growing up in San Antonio? What was it like wanting to be an artist and being, a young woman?
Well, it was a dream that I never thought would happen, honestly, because I live on the east side of San Antonio, which is not a wealthy area. My mother very much wanted me to go to college, but she wanted me to be an English teacher, something safe. She did not want me to be an artist because she thought there is no financial security in the arts. And this is something I still hear from my students and their families all the time. And I keep telling them, stop worrying about it. Do what you want to do. You will find a way to make a living. But it was for me a dream. When I was 16, 17 years old, and picking up the newspaper, I never saw any Latino names in the newspaper, except maybe for Jose Vives Atzara, who was the only Latino name I ever saw. And he painted blue bonnets and he was a part of the Art League. And I think that's the only reason he ever got his name out, is because he was connected to a group and he made very conservative work. It was very beautiful, but it fit what San Antonio's idea of itself was at that time. And then the 70s happened and all heck broke loose. We had redistricting in San Antonio. We got Latinos elected to city council, which means the funding got reshuffled. The Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center came into existence. Centro Aslan came into existence. And all of a sudden, literally, the complexion of the arts in San Antonio changed radically. Now,
What year was that?
yeah, it was amazing. It
It
was
was like the 80s
it was in the 70s.
and the 70s?
Thing happened in the and you know what, it's funny is that there were major politicians involved in that. From what I remember, from what I understand, the Clintons were part of helping San Antonio strategize and figure out how to put its political best foot forward for communities of color.
Interesting.
That there were other people who were local people, like Rosie Castro, who is the mom of the two Castro brothers who are now very much in power. She was a part of that too. So it was an amazing time politically, and the politics were very good for Latino Chicano artists. At that time, we were calling ourselves Chicano. The names keep changing, but we were calling ourselves Chicano.
Yes.
Mel Casas was at San Antonio College. He was running Consafo. The Quemados were there, not at SAC, but they were in the city. There were other groups that were amazing. Cesar Martinez was on the scene. So was Felipe Reyes, who taught for a little while at UTSA and then got kicked out. So there were major names who were rising in San Antonio in the arts as Latinos. And that for me was a whole new thing, because all of a sudden I could recognize and pronounce the names of the artists I was seeing reviewed. And
Was it male dominated
it
as
was
far as the
male
art world
dominated. It
in
was very
general?
much male dominated. And actually, later I curated an exhibit for Centro de Artes, which talked about that very thing, is that the Chicano movement was very male dominated. They weren't getting into museums either. The women's movement was very Anglo dominated. They weren't getting into museums either. So I was literally in both outcast.
Where does that leave a Chicanita that wants to do art for a living?
That's
Were
right.
you forced or persuaded to find another career?
No, actually, because I left into a job at a place that made TV commercials. And so I learned about photography through the back door. I learned about photography by working in a studio where animation was happening.
Mm.
And So I was making a living, even though it wasn't a lot of money and it was mostly part-time. I was making a living before I ever went to school to get the final degree, because I knew where there's a will, there's a way. If I really want to do this, I'll find a way to do this. And that's basically how I learned how many arts jobs are out there. It was a slow journey, but an interesting one. SAC was amazing and incredible. They had a fantastic art department. With Mel Casas in charge, they had to be culturally sensitive. UTSA was a whole other story, because a lot of their professors came from out of town and out of state. A lot of them came from the East Coast, and they weren't quite sure what to do with us. And by us, I mean both Latinos and women. There weren't very many Latinas in the graduate program. There weren't very many women in the graduate program. And everyone was questioned. If you weren't making conceptual art, if you weren't making abstract art, what on earth was this cultural you were doing? And what on earth was this women's stuff? Why are you using lace? Why are you putting lace in your photographs? It doesn't fit the norm. I wasn't making giant artwork. Well, what happened is my last semester in the graduate program at UTSA, they brought in a New York art critic who actually liked my work and decided to write about it, and wasn't that hot for the work that was being made, big work being made by male artists.
Interesting.
And
Did that
yeah.
change the viewpoint of everybody else?
Oh gosh, no. But that changed my viewpoint. That changed my sense that, yeah, I can do something here. So
And who were your mentors at this time? Was there anyone taking you under their wing?
yeah, well, Mel Casas was always there. There was a photography teacher by the name of Tom Wright, who was a rock and roll photographer. And he was fantastic because he was the perfect fit, because I was involved in rock and roll photography. I had friends in the rock and roll world. I, in a sense, followed his trajectory for a while. So, like I said, I was making money. I was making money as a commercial photographer, as a rock and roll photographer, working in animation.
Yes.
I was fortunate in that when my mother said, "What are you going to do to make a living?" I could tell her, well, there's animation, there's rock and roll photography, there,
What bands did you photograph? I'm
I
curious now.
photographed interesting. I photographed, and I'm still friends with one of the guys from Blue Oyster Cult, and we are
Oh
actually
no.
now writing songs
That's
together.
awesome. You're
So
writing songs with him?
I write the lyrics. I don't do music, but I write the lyrics,
Really?
and so I've got credits on 3 or 4 of his CDs.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
so
is, you've got like major coolness cred right now. So I'm
yeah,
just telling
well,
you.
his name is Albert Bouchard. You can look him up on YouTube. He made videos for the songs we wrote. He put them on YouTube.
What songs? What are they called?
Yeah,
I'm gonna Google them.
yeah, I'm writing. You write that down. Albert,
Yes.
he's great. He's a good pal. And let me see, who else did I photograph? I had a
You need
horrible
to add that to your
experience.
bio. Rock and roll
Yeah,
songwriter.
I put that's in the long bio. I gave you
Ah, I didn't read the long
long
bio.
bio, but it's something I do for fun. I just finished my first novel during
Really?
COVID last summer. I
Perfect.
dug it out. I've been working on it for years. And so it's a novel about rock and roll in the 1970s. What we wanted, the social goals and social dreams, social justice aspirations we had, how we blew it, how we got sidetracked, how we were seduced by money and fame and drugs and all of the bad stuff that hit rock and roll in the 70s and 80s. So I need to find a publisher now, but I wanted to take that on because most of my work is about social justice, whether it was back in the 70s with Gonzalo or today in the 21st century, looking at environmental issues, looking at ethnic issues, racial issues, whatever. Most of my work is about social justice. It's personal, but as the women's movement used to say, the personal is political.
It's political.
The fact that we
Exactly.
exist as women artists, the fact that we exist as Latinx artists is political.
This is
Because
so exciting, Kathy, because I went away to school. I went to Los Angeles, and it was during the 90s anti-immigrant sentiment. So I became very much a Chicana there, fighting for, immigrant rights for our people. And then, but the Texas history is omitted from that conversation because they think, oh, it just only happened in these major cities. But what happened in San Antonio? We need that book. We need to know that history. So this is really exciting news. What
well,
you're looking for a publisher, we'll find one.
but not only what happened in San Antonio, but what happened in the border areas, what happened with other artists like Santa Barasa, like Cesar Martinez, like Mel Casas, like Rudy Trevino, like all of these major artists who were, in a sense, very much a part of the Chicano experience. Carolina Flores was a part of that. And sometimes we forget them because Mel is gone now. A lot of them didn't rise as high as they should have. Felipe Reyes did not rise as high as he should have.
Mhm.
But it was
Why is that?
the times. They were the door openers.
Hmm.
In Mel Casas, let's put it this way. I always tell my students, I expect you to go further, faster than I have. Mel Casas, Cesar Martinez
Hmm.
were the door openers. They
Hmm.
were the ones who banged on museum doors and let in the floodgates for the rest of us. We went further, faster than some of them, not all of them. Cesar's still way out ahead of us.
Cesar's still out
But
here, yes.
yeah, but we went further, faster than some of them because they opened the door for us. I expect my students to go further, faster because I hope I'm blazing some trails for them.
Well, and you have blazed trails, Kathy. Your work has been internationally shown. You want to tell us how that happened? I think a lot of local artists want to know, how do I go to Berlin? How do I go to Japan?
You talk to the city. Actually, I have to admit that those opportunities would not have come my way if it wasn't for the city of San Antonio. So
The
artists,
mayor or the council people, who's making those connections?
everybody. Okay, the way I got to go to Buenos Aires
Hmm.
is that Eduardo Diaz, who used to run the city, who used to be head of arts and culture, went to the Smithsonian. And when he had a chance to do an exchange show with one of the organizations over there, he set it up with San Antonio artists and one Austin artist. So he set it up with Sam Coronado, who was working with a
Hmm.
press in Austin, and
Austin.
Vincent Valdez and me, and we got to go. And it was not cheap to send us. So the money came partly from the city of San Antonio, partly from the Art Pace Foundation, partly from the Smithsonian. That's how these things get
Hmm.
put together. It's never, I can't say I'm a great artist, so of course I got to go. No, I'm saying thank you very much to all of the people who have been there, not only for me, but for all of us. Same thing goes with the festival that happened in the Caribbean. It was the city that said, okay, we're sending 3 photographers. You're going to be one of them. So thank you for city funding. Thank you to our politicians who have the wisdom to fund the arts, because not only is it good for artists, but then we turn around and say good things about you. And we have the opportunity to take our art somewhere else and to bring art from those regions back. The Caribbean trip was a sister city arrangement. So I have to say, I would be nowhere without my friends. I would be nowhere without my fellow artists. This is not an issue of, oh, you get to a certain point and of course you're
Hmm.
going to get certain connections. No, that's not the case. The case is thank you to everyone who has helped me, because that's a reality. And again, I hope to do that for my students.
And an attitude of gratitude is going to get you far. So, and it's very humbling to hear you be grateful because, we're grateful to you for everything that you've done. But going back to the city, what I understand, the development of the Department of Arts and Culture was because people fought for it.
Oh,
And I had a conversation with Miss Aranetta Pierce a
oh
couple
yeah.
months ago, and
Fantastic. I love her.
we need to hear from her and from you to say, okay, well, how hard did you fight for this so that we can further appreciate the fact that this even exists, that we're able to be sent off somewhere to travel with our art.
Yeah, because, well, I remember Aranetta helping me fund an apartheid show that I wanted to bring to the Guadalupe when I was a visual arts program director. She's always been generous with time, with money, with help, with connections. Same thing goes for Patsy Steves and any number of other people who I could name, Guadalupe board members, Guadalupe fans who have always been there to help. And I think they set the bar very high for me. I will never reach all of the contributions that they made, but I feel I have to try because we can't let the other guy do it. We can't say, oh, Aranetta will take care of it or somebody else will take care of it. We have to do what we can, whether you're a beginning artist or whether you're established. And that goes for the collectors too. I know Joe Diaz is watching this. There are collectors who have helped art. I know Joe and I know his relationship with artists because I've known Joe since I was at the Guadalupe. Joe has single-handedly funded artists in crisis. Anytime they were having a financial problem, it's like, yeah, you need money. I'll take art in trade. Give me some art. What do you need? You need to pay your rent. You need to pay the taxes on your house. You need to hire a lawyer because you're going through a bad spot right here with your family. Whatever it is, Joe has always been there. We also have collectors like, let me see, well, like Dr. Romo, like Ricardo Romo, who buy to give things away. So we see his collection not in his house, but at the McNay. Joe Diaz has also given away tons of work to the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago, to the National Hispanic Cultural Center in New Mexico. He paid for it, so the artist was served that way.
And also, Dr. Romo purchases up and coming artists,
Yeah.
not just the established. I think he has a set limit that he'll pay for, and then but it's a lot of up and coming artists, and I can just imagine how amazing that feels to be in an important collection that he also donates left and right.
And Joe does the same thing. Joe just bought a piece by Janelle Esparza, one of my favorite young artists.
Nice.
Fantastic young woman, does great work, to donate to the museum. He's never going to get to hang it in his house. It's going straight from her studio to the museum. And that means there's another Latinx artist voice at the Sama collection, which is desperately needed. Won't go into specifics, but we need to get those artists there. She's a young artist. She's well established already, but she's still a young artist.
She is a Luminaria Artist Foundation grantee. I'm not sure
Yeah.
last year, the year before,
Yeah.
but she's and she also her work went into the convention center,
Yeah.
and
Did an
there was
grant.
some controversy because it was a field of cotton, and we had the NAACP convention coming in. And so Miss Nettie Hinton said, "Excuse me, you cannot put a picture of cotton for NAACP." But it was a conversation of how Janelle's family were cotton pickers, and so that it incites this conversation and dialogue that my family wasn't cotton pickers, but apparently there's a lot of Mexican American families that were, and I didn't know that history up until
Yeah.
all of this came up. So now we're having this beautiful conversation of what
Yeah.
cotton represents.
Yeah. Because we can't deny our history. We cannot deny our history.
Well, kudos to Mr. Joe Diaz. Do you have an email, phone number? How can all the artists on here
Yes,
give you
I'll
a
get
call?
you in touch with Joe. He'll
Putting you
have
on the
to give
spot.
you his, yes, he'll give you his email there, but he's,
I do have
you
a donate button we'll add later. But,
know,
I mean, those are our guardian angels sometimes, because, even with the Working
Here's the
Artist Fund,
wallet.
there we go. Well, it's all digital now, Joe. It's all digital.
refill it and then
Bitcoin.
we'll talk.
We don't do cash anymore. It's all PayPal.
Yeah, just give us
But
the
yeah,
plastic.
but that you've thrown out a few challenges, and I think now that this is what, my fourth, almost fifth month at the helm of Luminaria. So a lot of the work that I've been doing is gathering intel and absorbing what are their needs, what do people want to see from an organization that can, create these grants. The new, grants for new works is a lot bigger than a working artist fund. But how else can we partner? Like you said, we need to partner with other organizations,
Yeah.
with the city, and say, let's take our artists elsewhere. Luminaria has a history of bringing in artists from other countries. So let's do an exchange. Let's send our artists out in exchange for an artist to come here. And we had focus groups for our strategic planning, and the artists were saying, we want a network. We want to be introduced to other artists across the country, across the world. That's all wonderful, but let's have a discussion and influence each other.
And that's absolutely necessary. And something else we need is arts writers, really good arts writers and critics. I really miss,
Exactly, yes.
I really miss Elda Silva. I really, really miss her. And because we need the person who knows us.
Hmm.
And what I'll say about Elda is she knew everyone. So when she wrote about their work, she knew what she was talking about. Now, the Current does a pretty good job, but they're not a daily newspaper.
Right.
And so we need to foster that. And I don't know how we put that together.
Maybe
How,
it's a blog. I
yeah,
have a website.
yeah.
Let's use it.
We need, and we have so many great artists. We need to foster young curators, and the McNay is doing a great job. Liz Paris, who is over at the McNay, is putting together a San Antonio artist exhibit. Younger artists, she's doing a great job. She's a good thinker. She's culturally aware. I'm so happy. I know her because she was in my history of photography class. She got her bachelor's at Incarnate Word, and she learned, in a sense, she learned to have an open perspective from her experiences there, because we really are a social justice university. And so when she curates, she takes all of that into consideration. She's very smart. And so we need more of those new young curators, more of those writers' voices that really can assess and explain art. Because I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I was on a committee recently for a major organization. We were supposed to nominate young artists for purchase. And no offense, but there were very few Latino names on that list of proposed artists. And most of
Were
them,
there any Black artists?
there were probably even fewer Black artists. There were maybe, well, because Joe and I were both on the same committee, we nominated about 5 apiece. So that's why the Latino population went up. There were no African Americans on the committee. And there were, I think maybe, well, there was one African American artist that I know of, very notable. It wasn't like you could leave her out kind of situation. And very little cultural understanding. And these institutions raise funds, they write grants based on how many Latino people go through their organizations. And they want to have all those little brown faces from kindergarten all the way through to high school trooping through their institutions, so they can write down, yes, we're culturally sensitive. Yes, we're culturally aware. We had 5,000 Latinx people come through our doors. But then
Title I schools that are
yeah,
historically Black and brown.
right. But where's the art to represent them? What are these kids going to look at? Where's the cultural
There was
understanding?
an article yesterday that Caldrick Dow posted, who's a Black artist in San Antonio. He's from Houston, moved here. And he did talk about going into a major museum and seeing one African American figure represented in a painting. And he said, well, where's the rest? You know,
Yeah,
and that influenced him. And he's one that's up and coming. He was on the Arts Commission with me for one term because CD2 has all this turnaround, but I represent Council District 3. He was CD2 for one term, and then now he has commissions coming out. He's on the pre-qualified list. I think he's getting more notoriety, but Caldrick isn't the only artist, the Black artist in San Antonio. There's so many more. And so, from my point of view as a director of an organization that isn't supposed to encompass all of the arts of San Antonio, I need to make those connections and find out and go to them and say, here's an olive branch. What can we do together? And so
yeah.
that's my challenge. It's not up to them to say, hey, I'm here. It's up to
See,
us to go out and find them.
and my job as a protagonist and an agitator is to say, why aren't you guys aware? Why, what, not what can I do, but what can you do? Do you need to hire
They do.
Latina curators?
Yes,
Do you
absolutely.
need to hire? Because it's possible. I mean, I look at the McNay where they were, say, 50 years ago when I got started, and all of the progress they've made up to today. And it's amazing to me because for so many years, this was almost a private institution. And then they began to open up. They were aware, even since John Palmer Leeper was there, who was there 50 years ago. Bill Kiego continued that. He was somebody who welcomed it. He did. I got a retrospective there. Cesar got a retrospective there. Vincent exhibited his work. There was an open door policy, so to speak, and major shows, good shows, catalogs with good. It wasn't, well, hang one piece on the wall. This was major presence. And now they've got a director who actually is from the Latinx generation and who actually is making even more strides, and they're opening up even more. I would love to see, and it's not just the McNay. I've seen Blue Star. I had to fight when I first exhibited at Blue Star, when I first was on the board of Blue Star. I left the board in disgust because they had zero cultural sensitivity. Look at them now. They're fantastic.
What year was that?
Oh, this would have been probably the year they started. It would have been 86 or 87.
In the 80s.
And they started making strides forward. It was, again, it's slow going. It's not anything that happens right away, but it happens. If an institution says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be culturally sensitive, I'm going to be culturally aware, I'm going to be aware that this is not a sense of numbers and how can I write down more numbers on my score sheet.
And how many organizations put together Black Lives Matter statements? And what's happened to those statements? How did they implement the actions that they were proposing to instill in their organizations? Has anything changed?
Yeah.
Institutionally?
And that's the thing, is change has to come from the inside, which means these organizations need to have voices on the inside that are saying, do this, don't do that. But for God's sake, don't hire a token.
Yes.
Don't hire somebody who you think looks good on paper,
has the last name, looks
has
the
right last name, but you don't actually want them to speak up.
Yes.
Because trust me, having been there, having friends who've been there, Joe's been there, I've been there. The last thing you want to be is the lone voice, because you don't make any progress. It's really funny because and I'll put this out as a piece of advice for young artists. When you go looking for jobs, no matter how wonderful the job looks, don't sign up to be the token. When I looked at the next job to take after the Guadalupe, when I was fleeing the Guadalupe, and it's a whole other story. I looked at 3 organizations, and one was in San Marcos, and it was the Whitliff Collections at Texas, and they were wonderful, and I was really tempted, and I still love them. I still work with them. I donate art to them whenever I can. They are fantastic, but I thought, I've been a curator. Let me try something different. And I really wanted to teach. I thought I was ready to teach. There was an offer from Incarnate Word. There was an offer from another local institution. The other local institution, I knew I was going to be the token. And I thought, I can't live that way. And I looked at Incarnate Word, and they were making real social change. They were a Hispanic serving institution. I visited. I loved the students. I loved the teachers. They had a social justice perspective. I said, this is where I want to be. This is where I belong. So all of you looking for jobs, when you go looking for jobs, don't just look at the bottom line. Don't just look at the salary. Look to make sure you're going to be listened to. Look to make sure you're going to be respected. Look to make sure you can make a positive impact in the world through your job choice. Because otherwise, all the money in the world won't help you.
No, that's amazing advice. And also I feel a lot of artists don't want a full-time job. They don't want to belong to an organization, clock in, clock out. They want to kind of carve their own path, make money off of their work. But how do you do that nowadays?
See, you'll have to talk to Vincent Valdez about that one, because he's managing very nicely. I don't know if he's with us, but he's he and Cesar are 2 of the few artists I've known who can actually do that. And they manage to put it together. They manage to. Now, my problem is I don't have the wherewithal to do the PR and do the people time, what I would think. And actually, I don't know how Vincent does it, because I don't think he does a lot of PR either, but I think he's got good galleries and he's got good contacts. And again, it goes back to having good friends and having people who are willing to help you. But you're right, a lot of artists don't want full-time jobs, and that's fine. Just make sure you guys have health insurance, because look at what happened during COVID. Make sure you have a small nest egg, because sometimes for musicians, the well dried up during COVID. For actors, directors, the well dried up during COVID. So visual artists can keep making visual art, especially if you're graphics oriented or photography oriented. If you were a commercial artist, commercial photographer, you could try to keep going, because you could do it over the internet. Actors, singers, musicians, they couldn't do that. So it's being an artist is always, how would I put it, an unsteady life. The more planning you can do, the better. If not, call Joe Diaz.
Hi, Joe. You're my new best friend.
Yeah. But the more planning you can do, the better. Because I've known lots of artists who didn't have full-time jobs, who got into heavy-duty crisis situations and really needed help getting bailed out. And if you don't have a full-time job, you can't go to the bank and say, loan me money. So
yeah, how many Kickstarter fundraisers have we seen for medical purposes when an artist is sick? I think learning the business of art is very important. How do I write a contract? How do I protect my assets? Copyright issues. There's a lot of that artists don't look at or think about. They just want to sell. They need to make $3,000 right now, sell a piece, line up some gigs, but you need to know the business.
Plus, they put stuff out on the internet. They'll put it on YouTube, or they'll put it on wherever.
Give it away.
And somebody steals it. Somebody steals your music. Somebody steals your words. somebody steals your image and does something else with it. And this happens to major artists. This just doesn't happen to artists where people think they can get away with it. This has happened to major big name artists.
Yes,
And
Prince changed his name to a symbol because of this reason.
Yeah, exactly. And so artists have to be prepared to defend. The other thing is, and this is an interesting concept, we've always, because when I was with the Guadalupe and when I was hanging out with friends, we did auctions sometimes. And what has happened now is that these auctions and art sales have been to benefit organizations. And so the artists will get some of the money, but it's really about the organization. The auction we did was for the AIDS fax clinic at the time when AIDS had first happened. And it wasn't me putting it together. I was a small part of it, but it was David Casas, it was Michael Martinez, it was Steve Bailey. It was the artists and art lovers in San Antonio who helped put it together because the AIDS fax clinic had asked for work. We said, you're going to have so many artists because we all had connections with the AIDS community. You're going to have so many artists wanting to give for your clinic. You're going to have a lot of leftover art. So whatever is you come in, you pick what you want, whatever's left over will auction. And that's what happened. We raised $11,000. And then organizations took it over and started fundraising for themselves. Well, what happened to fundraising for artists? I mean, you've got an artist grant program. What if you ask artists to donate work to benefit themselves so that they can put a piece of work up, they can donate it. Collectors, buyers, decorators, whoever wants to come can come and bid on things and buy things. And then the money goes back into that artist fund so that those very same artists can apply for funding and know that in a sense their nest egg is growing, that they've given a piece, maybe a piece that they haven't been able to sell. And now that piece is going to support.
Well, that's a great concept. How do we make their work visible and, come up with some sort of a silent auction that's online. So, SACI does this very well. And I think Blue Star also does. I don't know if they do it virtual, but the red dot, and that's something that you started now with this AIDS fundraiser. But even if anyone has ever gone to Etramano, to the SoFlo market, what else is out there? All these little pop-up markets that happen are because Kathy Vargas invented the concept.
Well, I don't know if I invented the concept.
You were the first.
Advantage of it. But, the thing with Etramano is there was no craft show. There was no big craft show at the time. There were smaller, and now the Southwest School of Art does their Fiesta thing, but there isn't anything for local and regional craftspeople. There is really good craft, there is really good ceramic work, there is really good folk art, there's really good woodwork and ironwork and different types of work that is craft oriented, and there's no visibility for it, there's no market for it. And it would be really, really nice to be able to have that, because especially at Christmas time, we did Etramano at Christmas. If you want to decorate, you want to help friends decorate, you want a little something to give, to buy a little pot or buy a big pot or buy whatever, buy clothing, we had painted clothing, we had beautiful designer things. I miss that. I miss, because it included craftspeople from around the state. And it was, in a way, it was almost based on the Kerrville Folk Festival, which has a big crafts market, certainly bigger than Etramano. It's outdoors, it's hot, they have music, but still, people love crafts because crafts are practical. And a lot of fine arts people also make crafts. A lot of photographers also make postcards. A lot of people who do huge, beautiful public art also make little pots. And so it's a chance for all of them to get their work out.
The Esperanza Peace and Justice Center has what do they call the holiday market? The Peace Market.
Yeah, right. See, but a lot of those folks are from Mexico.
Yeah, they do have a Mexican
They
contingency,
have a
yes.
heavy presence
Mm-hmm.
from Mexico. And also, there are a lot of people there who are doing resale stuff.
Oh.
Okay. I'm talking about a real crafts market, a
Mm-hmm.
crafts market that says you have visibility here for the work you make. Fine
So
artists
that
have a,
you can meet the artist that made the item you're purchasing and have that
exactly,
conversation. That's
and maybe
special.
commission something for later.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, let's
'Cause-
think about that idea. With Luminaria, what some of the feedback that I received about the festival was that you get to see the artist and then talk to them about what they're doing and their work. So that's something that's really important to have that one-on-one, face-to-face time with an audience.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges you see for San Antonio as we continue to grow our arts community? Where should we go? What should we be focusing on right now?
I'll give this one to the politicians. We need more heavy duty industry in this city. Houston has a huge arts market, many commercial galleries, because they have outposts from major corporations in their city. San Antonio has a wonderful arts community. This is an incredibly creative, livable city. And as I said before, our politicians have been tremendously wonderful in supporting us. And our visitors, our Convention and Visitors Bureau has been tremendously wonderful in supporting us. But we need a steady stream and we need an educated public. And that steady stream and that educated public aren't going to come in with a big bang until we have more named industries here. Toyota was a great move. We need 20 Toyotas, different companies. You know, we need to have, well, let's look at San Francisco, Silicon Valley, that area. We need to have major tech companies here. Why are they in Austin? Yes, the university is there, but we're a much more livable city. Look at, we don't have nearly the traffic jam at 5 o'clock that Austin does. We have a lot more art events. They have more music. I give them that, but we could grow that.
I will argue the music thing. I think we have more music. They just have good marketing.
They do. They have that. Maybe that's a thing. We need better
That's
marketing.
marketing.
But
But you
but
know, with tech in San Francisco, there was the whole gentrification that happened of the Mission
yeah.
District. The artists were kicked out. Some of my friends were kicked out from their
you know,
homes.
but we're already gentrifying. The east
Yes,
side is
we are.
gentrifying. I live on the east side. The east side is gentrifying. I was looking to think about moving just a few blocks away, and I'm shocked by the property values. And I'm like, when did this happen? So we're already gentrifying. We might as well benefit from it.
That's
You know,
why I keep my rooster crowing all the time because I don't want people to come here and say, "Oh, I'm going to buy this area up." Oh, there's roosters. Never mind.
really, you should keep your rooster.
I do.
Because, you know, I'm sitting here going, okay, if we're going to get priced out of the marketplace, where's the benefit? You know, and it's really funny because what's growing is the medical industry and what's growing is the military industry.
Hmm. Hmm.
My part of the world, a few blocks down, is being taken over by military personnel associated with Fort Sam. So that's where we have growth areas right now that I can see, and that's just my personal experience. So we need some business capital. We need some people with bucks who love art. You know,
Yes, we need to find
yeah,
find them and get them interested and say, "You want to be in our community? This is
yeah,
how you support us." And San Antonio is so unique that we're not like any other city in the world because of our arts and culture.
that's right.
And I feel very strongly about that we're very unique. I think we are the capital of South Texas, that we're not Austin. That's already a whole nother
That's
culture, I
right.
feel.
Yeah,
You know, I feel very connected to our valley brothers and sisters. And, you know, northern Mexico, South Texas to me is one and the same ancestral homeland for me and my family. So it's a whole different feel, a whole different vibe. We could be the seventh largest city in the nation,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like
Well,
down home. We're friendly.
I think the bottom line is we're culturally aware, and
Mm.
we understand that we need to be culturally aware, that we can't just know about European art, or we can't just know about American art from the 50s to the 80s or the 90s, that it's not enough to know who Andy Warhol was or to have an Andy Warhol show, that we are Mexican American, we are Puerto Rican, we are Cuban American, we are African American, we are from different regions, from the Caribbean, from US African American groups, from recent African immigrants, that we are Asian American, that we are many different types of American, Native American, etc. And if and we need to acknowledge that. What I learned when I was going to college is that my teachers didn't understand my art. That was aside from SAC. Once I left SAC, it very quickly came to my attention that my teachers didn't know what the heck I was doing. Not only because it was women's art, but because it had Latino imagery in it. And that hasn't changed a lot, which scares the heck out of me. I had a student call me 15 years after I left, right around, just as I was leaving the Guadalupe, right around 2000. This is another thing that made me decide to go to Incarnate Word. I had a young artist, wonderful artist, call me and say, my teachers don't like my work. They say it's political. They say I shouldn't be making political art. They say I should be making universal art. And I said, well, here's what you tell your teachers. You tell your teachers, yes, I'm making political work because I exist, but bottom line, what I'm making is cultural work. I'm making work that represents who I am, and that's what artists do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand if they need to get on the stick, because it's them that are behind the times, not you. And so oftentimes we have that European mentality trying to guide us forward and saying there's no room for you to be Latinx, there's no room for you to be African American, there's no room for you to be whatever. Make some nice conceptual art and we'll talk to you. Make some nice postmodern referencing work and we'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just
even
don't make
when,
us uncomfortable.
yeah. But the funny thing is, this kid was making, not a kid anymore, he was making postmodern art. They just couldn't see it because all they were seeing was cultural referencing. And I'm like, have you looked at the definition of postmodernism? Postmodernism includes cultural referencing. So, people get left behind because they're afraid to keep up. And so my message is open yourselves up. Don't be scared. My students have all sorts of work that they're making. Some of them are doing anime, some of them, and they're doing it as a fine art. My teachers, if I had done that, my teachers would have said, you're not supposed to be making commercial work. Commercial work is not, you're in a fine arts department. Commercial work is not allowed. But these kids, they're doing amazing, wonderful things with what their new perspective is. How on earth am I? What right do I have to shoot them down? What I need to do is open up my own mind and say, okay, tell me about what you're doing. Tell me about why you're doing it. Tell me what you need from me. Tell me what, because the bottom line is, I'm a Latinx artist, photographer. But if I don't know about African American art, if I don't know about Asian American art, if I don't know about Native American art, if I don't know about all of the different diverse arts that are out there, there's something wrong with me. So if a Chicana can say that, then certainly we can get some of our non-people of color curators and museum directors, etc., to say the same thing, and definitely college teachers. One of the reasons I went into teaching on the college level is because I thought, I want to be here for these kids with these new ideas. And I want to be the one to tell them your idea is valid and your idea has value and your idea is going to propel us forward. Because if we're not there for the new voices, we're going to get left way behind. So I'm waiting for a few San Antonio institutions to still catch up.
Y'all hear that? San Antonio
Yeah,
institutions.
are you listening? Won't say who, but I think I know who they are.
We're not going to tag you yet.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
but not yet. Give us a month or two. But I'm waiting for that forward motion. Carry us all forward. Black lives matter. Black art matters. Social justice issues matter. All of our issues matter. We're all a part of what needs to be addressed and responded to in the world.
Wow. I was gonna ask more questions on what advice do you have, but I think people are taking furious notes at the moment, because this is just, these are gems that from someone that's been through and fought for so hard to get to where you are, so that you can now pass that knowledge on to us, because we think it's kind of easy. We have our struggles, but what you've gone through as a young Chicano, woman trying to get through college, trying to tell your family, trying to, up against the male dominated art group, did they let you into these conversations? Probably not. Hey, Kathy, I've had to make coffee for my peers, and I'm like, I ain't making
I
no
probably
coffee.
shoved my way in, face it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Don't give up. None of you should give up. Just keep talking.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. If anyone has any questions, now's the time. We're about almost an hour in.
Yeah.
And we can hang out for a little bit longer if anyone wants to unmute themselves. And this is a safe space. We will be, hopefully we're recording this, we can share it, but your opinions and questions are valid. So if there's anyone, don't be shy.
Go ahead, Martha. I'll go second.
The City of San Antonio, by City Council resolution in 2017, we committed ourselves to be a city of compassion. And your quest for justice, your sensitivity to people epitomize being compassionate. And I am grateful to be with you building a city of compassion.
Thank you, Martha. You're one of the first people I met at UIW, and you're still definitely, don't tell anyone, you're definitely my favorite. So.
Awesome. Well, my name is Deanna Brown, and I am one of the current Kathy Armstrong Luminaria Contemporary Arts awardees. Thank you very much. And I live generationally right now. So I took off my mic and I've got company over there jumping in my bed. So pardon him. But I really wanted to thank you so much for all of the information you gave. Even though I am not a young woman, I am new as an artist.
You're a young artist.
Thank you. And so I'm really excited for the information that you were sharing, and it's very inspiring. And thank you so much for the encouragement to keep going and being connected in. I hear our struggles, are basically the same, with Black and Brown people, and we're really fighting to be seen and to be heard. And I just appreciate the collaboration, especially I've been in Luminaria for a week now, and it's been amazing. So thank you, Yadhira. Oh, did I get it right? Yadhira, I got it right that time.
Now, Dan, have you ever watched a film called Colored Frames?
Not that, no. Okay.
Watch Colored Frame, find Colored Frames. It is a film that features major African-American artists interviewed 10 or 15 years ago, my age, talking about what they had to do to get noticed. I play it for my students all the time.
Well, I will definitely look that up. I'm determined for now, every film set that I'm on will have a piece of my artwork in the background. Okay, that's my first step.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for bringing that up, Deanna. And again, congratulations on your award,
Yes,
your grant.
congratulations.
So I have been featuring artwork in my Zooms behind me, and I had a beautiful photo of three cholas. That was a photo by Cristel Horta, and she had lent it to me, but it was cardboard. It was a print on cardboard, and it fell the other day. So I put them in the backseat of my car. So now they're cruising with me, around San Antonio. And so I needed a replacement, and this is a new public art work that's in the river. Right now it's at the Riverwalk. It'll be at Comanche Lookout Park. But this is obviously a giant peyote. So the artists are, I
was going to say, who made that?
This is, it's called, I'm totally going to butcher this, Najo Jam, collaboration by San Antonio artists Carlos Cortez and Doroteo Garza. The title of the artwork is the Coahuiltecan language Pajalate, meaning our home. The name pays tribute to the ancestors of this land and future generations. It's currently on display at the Riverwalk Public Art Garden, and it's part of a rotating series of public art. This will be, like I said, at Comanche Park Lookout eventually, and there's a few other public art pieces there. That's through the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture. But so their virtual background, I'm going to get a replacement for my wall soon. And that's just another way we can support local artists. So
that's cool.
Anybody else wish to chime in? You can unmute
Barbara
yourself.
Riley here. I just want to thank you for doing this and thank Kathy for sharing her story. And it's really great to be connecting with people again. So thanks so much for doing this.
Glad to see you, Barbara.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Kathy. I'd love to see you in person sometime. So maybe now I'll be able to get back to San Antonio more often. I've been really out of the loop, but no more. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
When is the city going to open up?
I went to San Antonio recently. I wanted to tell you that I bought a piece from Armando Sanchez, who just raved about your work the whole time I was talking to him. And I just wanted to let you know that he thinks so much of you, Kathy. So that's it.
When is the Centro de Arte going to open up?
July. I was promised we would be opening back up in July. We did have a slate of art exhibitions that we've already selected last year when the pandemic shut down. They were approved. And so the Department of Arts and Culture, some of the staff that was handling Centro de Artes went to other departments. So they're working to bring them back. And we should be meeting as a committee. So Kathy and I serve on the Centro de Artes committee, and that should be back up in July is what I was told. So stay tuned for those announcements. That's a free art gallery, and hopefully we'll open up another call. I would love to see new work.
And wonderful exhibits. I've been so pleased and happy with all of the work exhibited there, all the work submitted and all of the work exhibited there. So.
And also just to discuss about, setting the tone for that gallery, it went through public art, a public process where we had to, I think it was Councilman Trevino held community meetings to see what was going to happen with that space. And the community said it needs to be a gallery dedicated to Latino artists. And so when we were going to open, there was a lot of issues from before when they felt that people just weren't walking in the door. It's a huge building and nobody was coming in. And so then there was some history of Market Square that it was full of botanicas that were kicked out. And I said, well, there you go. You disturbed all of our spiritual practices and kicked out all the brujos, and they're mad. So we actually had a ceremony with a Nahuatl woman, and she came in and did a cleansing of the space. We had Robert Trevino and Debbie Rockasitter sitting on the floor plucking flower petals, and we had candles, and we sat there and we prayed to the four directions, and we set forth really good intentions to invite people in. And the numbers have been great. Every time we have an art opening, it's jam packed in there. And so I'm hoping that, we have to bring our own spirituality in. We've got to make amends for, the people that were kicked out and say, okay, we're sorry. We're here now, and we're going to be good caretakers of this land, of this building. And, that's some of the work we're doing.
Yeah, we had to get back the spiritual energy.
Yes, clear out whatever bad energy was in there. So I firmly believe in that as well. Anything else?
Okay.
Dinner time? Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy, you're
Thank you for
amazing.
listening.
You're one of the elders of our arts community, and I'm just glad that you're so eager to impart your knowledge and wisdom to all of us, and show us how to move forward, move your legacy forward, so that we can then leave a better place for our children, and so that we don't have to move. We can stay in San Antonio, and we can continue to do work, and we continue to inspire each other and let the rest of the world know how amazing we are. So, all right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be saving this, and look forward to the next one. We'll make those announcements. Thank you.